So, let's start with the absolute basics. What exactly cultivated meat? It's crucial to understand that this is not a veggie burger. It's not a plant-based substitute made from soy, peas, or mushrooms that's designed to meat. This is genuine animal meat, identical at a cellular level to the meat that comes from a farm. The only difference, and it's a gigantic one, is how it's made. Instead of being part of a living, breathing animal, this meat is grown directly from animal cells in a clean, controlled environment called a cultivator or bioreactor. Think of it like a brewery, but instead of using yeast to brew beer, scientists use animal cells to brew, or rather cultivate, meat. The process itself is a marvel of biotechnology, and it generally breaks down into a few key steps. First, you need the starter cells. This begins with a small, harmless sample of cells taken from a live animal, a cow, a chicken, a pig, often through a simple biopsy, a process no more invasive than a routine blood test. From this one sample, you can harvest stem cells, which are the biological superstars capable of multiplying and transforming into the various types of cells that make up meat, primarily muscle and fat. Once these cells are isolated, they're placed into a bioreactor. This is essentially a large stainless steel vessel that provides the perfect conditions for growth. Inside, the cells are fed a rich, warm liquid known as a growth medium. This nutrient-dense broth is a carefully crafted cocktail of everything the cells need to thrive: proteins, carbohydrates, amino acids, vitamins, and minerals. It's designed to perfectly replicate the bloodstream of an animal, delivering all the nourishment the cells would get inside a body. Within this ideal environment, the cells do what they do best. They proliferate, doubling in number over and over again. A single sample can ultimately lead to trillions of cells. As they multiply, they are encouraged to differentiate, to turn into muscle fibers, fat cells, and connective tissues. They can be grown on edible scaffolding, which helps structure them, giving the final product the texture and chew we associate with conventional meat. After a period of a few weeks, the resulting tissue is harvested. It can be processed into unstructured forms like ground meat for burgers and sausages, or, with more advanced techniques, formed into more complex structures like chicken breasts or steak fillets. Now, why go to all this trouble? The potential benefits are staggering, and they address some of the most pressing challenges of our time. Let's start with the environment. Traditional livestock farming has an enormous environmental footprint. It's responsible for about 14.5% of all human-caused greenhouse gas emissions. That's more than all cars, planes, and ships combined. It's also incredibly resource-intensive. Livestock takes up nearly 80% of global agricultural land, yet produces less than 20% of the world's supply of calories. Cultivated meat turns this equation on its head. Projections from independent studies suggest that producing meat this way could reduce greenhouse gas emissions by up to 92% compared to conventional beef. Land use could be cut by an astonishing 95%. Imagine rewilding vast swaths of our planet, turning land currently used for grazing and growing feed crops back into forests, wetlands, and natural habitats. Water usage could also be slashed by up to 78%. This isn't just an incremental improvement, it's a paradigm shift in sustainable food production. Then there's the profound ethical dimension: animal welfare. For many, this is the most compelling argument of all. Cultivated meat completely decouples meat production from animal slaughter. It offers the prospect of a world without factory farms, without the confinement, stress, and suffering that billions of animals endure every year. The single painless biopsy taken from a donor animal could theoretically produce enough meat to feed a city, all while the donor animal continues to live a long, happy life. It's a system that allows us to continue eating the food we love without the moral compromise that has troubled so many for so long. Finally, let's consider food security and public health. Our current food system is surprisingly fragile. It's vulnerable to supply chain disruptions, climate change-related events like droughts and floods, and, critically, disease. Outbreaks of avian flu, swine flu, or mad cow disease can devastate livestock populations and pose risks to human health. Cultivated meat production, being a closed and sterile process, is insulated from these threats. It's also free from the risk of contamination by pathogens like E. coli or Salmonella, which often originate during the slaughtering and processing stages. Furthermore, it allows for the decentralization of meat production. Meat could be cultivated anywhere, in urban centers close to consumers, in arid desert nations, or even one day on long-duration space missions. This creates a more resilient, secure, and reliable food supply for a growing population. So, with all these incredible, world-changing promises, why isn't cultivated meat already on every supermarket shelf and in every restaurant? Well, the path from a brilliant idea in a lab to your dinner plate is paved with some formidable challenges. And that's exactly what we're going to break down next. We've just painted a very rosy picture of the future of food, a future filled with sustainable, ethical meat that's good for the planet and our conscience. But now, it's time for a reality check. The journey for cultivated meat from a niche innovation to a mainstream staple is fraught with massive technical, economic, social, and regulatory hurdles. Let's start with the biggest one: cost and scalability. The very first lab-grown burger, unveiled to the world in 2013 by Dr. Mark Post, cost over $300,000 to produce. Of course, that was a proof of concept, and costs have plummeted since then. Today, some companies claim they can produce a kilogram of cultivated chicken for a price that is getting closer to, but is still significantly higher than conventional chicken. The primary cost drivers are twofold. First, the growth medium, that nutrient-rich broth we talked about, is incredibly expensive. It often requires pharmaceutical-grade components, like fetal bovine serum in early iterations, though many companies are now developing cheaper, plant-based alternatives. Second is the sheer cost and energy consumption of the bioreactors. Building, sterilizing, and running these massive, complex steel tanks at the scale required to replace even a fraction of the traditional meat industry is a monumental engineering and financial challenge. It's one thing to make a perfect pound of ground meat in a laboratory. It's an entirely different beast to build a facility the size of a small city to produce millions of tons of it affordably and consistently. Next up is perhaps the most human and unpredictable challenge: consumer acceptance. Let's be honest, for many people, the term lab-grown meat doesn't exactly sound appetizing. There's a significant psychological barrier, often called the yuck factor, or the perception of it being unnatural or frankenfood. This is a powerful emotional response. Food is deeply personal and cultural, and we are naturally wary of new technologies meddling with what we eat. The industry is keenly aware of this, which is why you see a push for different terminology like cultivated meat, cellular meat, or the early term clean meat, all in an effort to frame the product more positively. Proponents argue that many foods we consider normal today, like pasteurized milk or even yogurt, which is essentially a product of bacterial culture, were once met with similar skepticism. Overcoming this will require immense transparency, public education, and most importantly, a product that is undeniably delicious, safe, and affordable. Then we enter the tangled web of the regulatory landscape. Before any cultivated meat product can be sold, it has to be approved by government bodies, and this raises a hornet's nest of questions. Who is responsible for overseeing its safety? In the U.S., it's a joint effort between the FDA and the USDA, a complex arrangement that took years to establish. What do you even call it? The traditional meat industry has lobbied heavily to prevent cellular products from being labeled as meat, arguing it would mislead consumers. This battle over nomenclature is playing out in governments around the world and could have a huge impact on marketing and consumer perception. While countries like Singapore, the United States, and the Netherlands have given the green light, the regulatory path in many other regions, including the vast European market, remains slow and uncertain. Beyond these practical issues lies a deeper, more philosophical debate about the impact on our society and culture. What happens to the millions of farmers, ranchers, and rural communities whose livelihoods and indeed their very identities are intertwined with the fabric of traditional animal agriculture? This isn't just an economic question, it's a cultural one. A swift transition to cultivated meat could devastate these communities. Proponents suggest a just transition where farmers might pivot to growing the plant-based crops needed for the growth medium or manage the vast tracts of rewilded land. But this is a complex societal shift that can't be ignored. Furthermore, we must consider its place in our culinary traditions. For centuries, our gastronomy has been built around specific animal breeds, the unique flavors imparted by their diet and environment, what the French call terroir, and the artisanal skill of butchery. Can a bioreactor truly replicate the complex marble texture and rich, nuanced flavor of a Spanish Iberico ham, an American dry-aged ribeye, or a French breast chicken? While creating ground meat is one thing, replicating the intricate structure of a whole cut of meat with its combination of muscle, fat, connective tissue, and bone remains the holy grail for this technology. So, the road ahead is long, complex, and uncertain, but innovation never stops. The path forward will require relentless research and development to drive down costs, open and honest communication with the public to build trust, and smart, forward-thinking regulation that fosters innovation while ensuring safety. Cultivated meat isn't just a new product, it's a profound question we have to answer as a society. What are we willing to change to create a more sustainable, secure, and ethical food system? Is this the definitive answer, or just one crucial part of a much larger puzzle? What do you think? Is cultivated meat the food of the future, or a technological pipe dream? Let us know your thoughts, your hopes, and your concerns in the comments below. We read every single one. If you found this deep dive fascinating and it gave you some food for thought, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who loves to think about the future. And of course, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next exploration into the cutting-edge technology shaping our world. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.